Hey guys, Brian here. Just a disclaimer on this episode. You might notice that I have much lower quality audio in the beginning of this episode. It's because when we started recording, I didn't realize that instead of using my microphone, I was actually recording with my computer's microphone, which is not that great. Luckily, I caught on pretty quickly, and so after a few minutes, you'll notice that my audio starts to get a lot better. Hopefully, we won't have that same mistake next week. Enjoy.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to TV Guys. My name is Matt,
Brian.
and we are here to talk, of course, about TV shows, but not just TV shows. We're talking about shows that jump the shark. Every TV show, when it starts off, it usually, if it runs for more than a couple seasons, it's going to transform and be a completely different show by the end. And some of them, they really went off the rails. So we're going to talk about some top three and maybe even a few other ones as well for shows that jumped the shark.
And I know this is a very common term, but if anyone doesn't know, this term comes from an episode of Happy Days where Fonzie, played by Henry Winkler, jumped over a shark on water skis. And that was seen as like this is ridiculous. Like, this show is just turned into something way too goofy. And it's become a term for when a show just kind of reaches the point where it becomes stale, or it's like, oh
Yeah.
man, they should have ended it at this point. And there's a lot of common examples of it. I won't throw any now because there'd probably be some that might be on our lists. But that's where the origin of Jump the Shark comes from.
Yeah. People tried to replace, I remember they tried to replace the phrase jump the shark like 10 years ago with nuke the fridge
Yep,
from
from
Indiana Jones and Crystal Skull. Never caught on, but similar concept. People after watching, they're like, oh, this is not the Indiana Jones we know and love. This is going to be completely different.
Exactly.
So buckle up, because we got some shows that I think last week when we were talking about this, we brought up how it's not always a bad thing for it to jump the shark and transform into a completely different show. None of my top three are good examples of doing that well. I don't know about you.
No, but interesting. All three of my shows are shows that I like, but it's just
Yeah.
it's still all at a certain point. This is a different show.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll also end it with a little bit of what are some shows, to kind of like a speed round of some shows that are a little more popular. Because I brought up three shows that maybe we've talked about, but really haven't gone more into depth. Like, we've talked about The Office. We've talked about Friends. We've talked about some of these shows to death, which, by the way, I would say Friends is one of those few shows that stayed so true to its initial starting that I don't think there was ever a moment where like it got too far away from them. I think that's one of the best examples I can think of, and that's impressive after a 10-year run.
I agree. Overall, I mean, there's a few minor things you could nitpick, like Joey got the Eric Matthews treatment of getting dumber as it went on, but it's not a huge deal really for me.
All right. Well, let's jump into it because I have got some doozies here. So I'm going to jump back. By jumping into it, I mean I'm going to jump back like 50 years. And my number three I'm going to bring up is a show that we all know and love, but we don't ever really think of it as like that serial show that you watch from the beginning to the end, and no one knows the seasons and all that sort of stuff. But that show is called The Flintstones. So I like The Flintstones. It was a very entertaining show, but there is a moment in the show that they bring in a character that it's just like, what the heck? Now, if you've watched Flintstones or seen Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas, you know which character I'm talking about. There is a character called the Great Gazoo, and he is this little green alien. So the whole point of this show was it's a modern family in caveman times. They stayed true to that a lot. They really didn't deviate from that structure. You had your talking animal that were the appliances of a house. You had your tie-ins that it felt so much like The Honeymooners with Jackie Gleason. But then at some point they're like, we need an alien. So they get this like alien. Barney and Fred stumble across this UFO crash. And this alien, Gazoo, he apparently got kicked out of the planet he was on because he built a doomsday device. He's like, I wasn't going to use it. I just wanted to have the first one on the block. Like, that's not an okay thing to do. Yeah. But he got kicked out of his species, sent to Earth, and his punishment is that he had to do good deeds on Earth. and the show just completely changed. I don't know anyone that watches Flintstones and is like, I really like that Great Gazoo character. It it came in halfway through the final season, so it's not like they had too many episodes with it. But I mean, like in that Flintstones, the real live action when they did that second movie, the Viva Rock Vegas or whatever, they're like, let's bring him back. You don't need. No one cares about Great Gazoo. He's not a classic character.
He's like the cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch.
I don't even know who that is. I don't remember that. So shows how much no one cares about these characters.
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen Viva Rock Vegas, but it's been years, so I don't remember him in that movie. All I really remember is some of the stuff at the casino.
Yep, I never watched that one. I saw the one with Rick Moranis and John Goodman, which was
a good one.
It was okay, you know. Yeah, I'd call it the good one. It's not, you know, it's not a must watch. But I remember last time we talked about Flintstones. You brought it up. John Goodman, impeccable casting. Rosie O'Donnell, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah. But when I say the good one, I mean I don't mean it's a great, should be on your top 50 movies. I'm saying if there's ranking them 1 out of 2, it's the better of the 2.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. I mean I never saw it, and even I know. Who played Fred? Was it the guy from Yes Dear?
No, you're thinking of Mike O'Malley.
That guy?
It was the guy from what's that show called? Still Standing?
That's right. Yeah.
It's one of those sitcoms.
Those guys look very
similar.
And he was the bartender that got in a fight with Marshall in How I Met Your Mother, right?
No, that's Will Sasso from
oh my gosh.
Three different
There's
guys.
Like 5,000.
He had a sitcom with Jane Curtin this past year that I don't think I picked up. That was actually pretty good. But he was famous from Mad TV.
Oh, yeah. And then he went on to be in Mike and Molly. That one I know is a different guy. Don't worry. I knew that one. So there you go. Flintstones definitely jumped the shark. They did it before Happy Days. Before them. They showed how to screw up your show.
What would you call that? Crash the Alien?
They got gazooed is what they did.
All right. So my Jump the Shark is a show that jumped the shark by circumstances that I understand, but really changed the show, which is when they had to kill off a main character, which was The Ranch.
Oh, okay. There was a couple that I think would have narrowed it down. I was going to guess 2.5 Men because we talked about that one not too long ago.
That one could also work too. I think so, for sure. Yeah. But so The Ranch was basically like the That 70s Show reunion show. And it was Danny Masterson, who was played Hyde on That 70s Show, and Ashton Kutcher, who played Kelso. They're playing brothers, and their father is Sam Elliott, and it's a ranching family. But then after, I don't know how many seasons, because there's technically like 8 parts. They call them parts. I don't know. But after a certain point, Danny Masterson in real life got into some legal trouble with some sexual assault allegations. And from what I've heard, he might not be the best guy in real life. And so they just like, you know what? We're going to just cut ties. We're going to cut you off the show. Interesting thing, though, I think they left the door open in case he got cleared or anything, because when they killed him off, they specifically said that they never found his body. They found his motorcycle and his shirt that had gone off or over a cliff. And in the storyline, he was running away from a guy who was going to kill him. And so it's perfectly plausible that he could show up later on and be like, yeah, I faked my death to get away from him. But that didn't happen. The end of the show, he never came back. So his character, Rooster, is just dead for the last little bit of the show.
And I took off my shirt, too, when I was throwing him off. Went around shirtless just to show him. Yeah, I find both Danny Masterson and Ashton Kutcher to be so fascinating because I think Masterson's sexual assault too was with a minor or a couple minors or something like that, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Whereas on the flip side, Ashton Kutcher is like one of the biggest voices in Hollywood to be like, "Hey, we need to end underage sex trafficking or sex trafficking in general, but especially for underage women." And like he has gone and he's testified in front of Congress. He's been, he's lended his opinion and his voice to that. And he's been a voice for some of these people that are voiceless. So you have completely different sides of the coin, Danny Masterson and Ashton Kutcher. And that's and they're in 2 shows together. So that's weird.
I know. And I don't know if they had a falling out because I have no idea if they're still friends or I don't know anything about that. But so the show it's about this ranching family and they are kind of struggling through the whole time. It's kind of like and we've talked about Roseanne in the past about how it's like a working class family really struggling to make ends meet. And there's a lot of drama, a lot of stuff that goes wrong. And so, one thing obviously they had to deal with this character dying, and then they brought in Dax Shepard to replace him as the long lost nephew they never knew was around. Also, that show just got to be way dramatic. It's just like, really, this family cannot catch a break. Like some of the things, Sam Elliott, ended up getting divorced from their mom, who was also part of the show, and he ends up dating this new girl, and all of a sudden finds out she has the early stages of Alzheimer's. And then when Colt, who's Ashton Kutcher's character, he was going to be starting his own ranch, and then he got into legal trouble for trying to blow up a dam because they got this new big ranching corporation that's trying to like squeeze out all the other ranchers. Who actually the villain kind of becomes one of the ladies from Hot in Cleveland. Which, if you've never seen Hot in Cleveland, consider yourself lucky. That show was terrible.
Yeah, I don't plan on it. That title, I mean, it's so intriguing. When I think of Cleveland, I think of hot older women.
Well, Betty White's in it.
Yep, that's who I'm talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, like, so now she's a villain, and all this stuff about she almost gets their ranch, and then his wife leaves him at one point, and then they get back together. And it's just, this show just gets so depressing, and it's like I said, they can never catch a break. It just gets so, like, when Danny Masterson was around, they still had their struggles, they still had their drama, but he kind of brought kind of some humor to it. Like that Hyde humor from that 70s show, he basically was playing the same personality of the character, and he worked really well with him and him and Colt to really kind of bring together that comedy. But Dax Shepard's character Luke just really didn't do that, because his character came in and he had a whole set of his own issues, and they could never escape the drama, and a lot of the humor really left the show when Rooster died.
Yeah, I think speaking of like drama going on and Dax Shepard, actually, I like Dax Shepard. He's kind of grown on me. I always kind of had a bad idea of him, and then I watch more stuff that he was in. I'm like, oh, he's actually pretty funny. But the show Parenthood kind of fits that for me. It just felt like that family just kept bad thing after bad thing. And the problem with shows that are like so based on like, this is just a family, let's look into a family, you have to have conflict in a show.
Yeah.
And so it gets hard when you have a show like Parenthood, or This Is Us is starting to get into that territory where they need to end sooner rather than later before it just gets annoying. Like, oh, look, another terrible thing your family's going through, let's see how they work this one out.
Well, and This Is Us is also just kind of grasping at straws too. Whenever they introduce a new character, all right, at some point we're going to get their backstory. Like now, Kevin's his baby mama Madison. I'm sure we're going to get an episode that's all about Madison's childhood and her backstory. We've done that with all of the non-Pearson 3 characters. We had an episode about Beth. We had an episode about Toby. I'm surprised we haven't gotten Miguel's childhood by this point.
Yeah, that's true. Like Miguel's like, I'm here. I'm a part of this family. Oh, I'm not? Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, that's my number 3.
All right, my number 2 is a show that we haven't talked about a whole lot, but I really liked it, and it lasted for 4 seasons, and then they did a reboot too, and it wasn't that good. But back about 10 years ago was a show called Heroes, and season 1 was really, really good. Heroes was this show that was like, we saw what made Lost good, and we need to try and do a similar drama. So it's this supernatural type thing that focuses on heroes and really ties into comic books. But like, they've got all these different heroes, but it's also because they've got all these different abilities. They did a really good job, especially in that season 1, of like, there's a painter who can paint the future, but because it's just a painting, he doesn't really have any other details apart from that. So it's like, well, this is a future we're heading towards. What does this mean? Mm-hmm. And so, he keeps like writing these things, and like his paintings get turned into comic books. And so some other characters read it and like, wait a second, this is the future. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's a really intriguing idea. And they did a really good job early on of like, here's glimpses of the future so that you're intrigued and there's a mystery, but it's like, how do we get there? And also, there's this bad guy in season 1 that you don't even see his face until like halfway through. And then they introduce his character in a flashback, and then you're like, oh, I like this character. Oh wait, that's the bad guy. They did a great job in season 1, and then season 2, the writing strike happened, and season 2 was okay, but it got cut short. And
Yeah.
in fact, there is even like, so Hero is one of the guys, he can jump through time and he can also freeze time. He can control time and space is kind of his thing. And he learns how to do it better and better. So he goes into the future with this one person and it's this alternate future. And so he sees bad things that happen there. And then he's trying to get away and he's able to get back to the present, but he leaves this one poor woman. We never see her again in the show.
Really?
It's like, I'm sorry, is she put into an alternate reality? And in this alternate reality, she's never able to escape? This, like, that's such a terrible fate. That was such an awful reality they were able to prevent, but she's stuck there. Like,
Well, I think what will happen is that as Hero changes the past, the world will change around her and Einstein, and then it'll be fine.
but then they caught up to that. You still don't bump into her. But I mean, they had good moments, but it really, like, the final season was. It was bad. Season 3 was really bad. I just remember there's like they trying to do too much. They're trying to salvage what they weren't able to do in season 2 because of the writer's strike and everything got cut early. And I think they never recovered from that. And so at like the final season is they have this one big bad guy who was I don't remember what his name was, but he's from Prison Break. He was
Teabag, right?
Yeah,
from Prison Break.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's a great villain, but he's the big bad, but he's the head of this carnival, which is a weird thing that they decided, okay, he's the carnival master, and then the heroes have to stop this evil carnival master.
The storylines you mentioned vaguely, because I watched Heroes. I didn't watch the last season. I watched like the first couple of episodes of the last season, and then I kind of dropped off. So these stuff, I've seen it, but it's been like 10 plus years, so it's not fresh in my mind. But yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Heroes started up really high and started getting lower and lower.
Yeah. Yeah. So unfortunately, it's one of those that I would say the shark moment for it is end of season 2. You could see the wheels start to come off, and then season 3 happened. And I don't remember a whole lot of season 3. I just remember watching it and being like, this is bad.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing about the guy painting the future and not really understanding it kind of reminds me of a thing in Supernatural. Did you ever watch much of that show?
No, because when I heard about it, it was like 11 seasons in, and it was still going, and I'm like, I don't want to get involved in this.
At one point, the brothers Sam and Dean, they stumble upon this book series where it's about them and their life, and it's like, who's writing all the details of our life? Turns out this guy is just a guy who didn't realize that he was a prophet. And so all this stuff is coming to him. He doesn't realize he's writing real life and like predicting real life. And he's like, wait a minute, your character's from my book, but this is actually happening? He's like, oh my gosh, I killed your father. What's going on?
It's like what is that? Like the scene from Spaceballs? What am I looking at? You're looking at right now. It is right now in the movie. That was that's a good movie. All right. So that's my number 2. Are you at number 2 or are you at number 1? I forget who started.
I'm at number 2. We switched it up because you started this time. And normally I've started in the past. Yeah.
I'm so excited. That's why.
It's all good. My number 2 is a show that I love. And it's a strict point for the Jump the Shark because my favorite season is followed by my least favorite season, which is 24. So, Matt, I know that you're familiar with 24. Did you watch it?
I saw the first season.
Okay. I saw the first 8 seasons. I never. All right. So to get some context, I got to tell you a little bit about season 5, which I think is the best season. Actually, I watched it earlier this year and it still holds up. The context of 24, each episode is an hour of real time and each season is 24 episodes. So like every season is one day in real time and they're not consecutive days. It's like there's one day and season 2 is like a year and a half later or so. And there's always some big catastrophe event going on. And so in season 5, there's a couple things. First is that President David Palmer, a former president at this point, who had been a main character throughout the show, and he's the big guy in the Allstate commercials. He used to say, like, you're in safe hands with Allstate. And that guy?
That was a great impression right then. Good job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I pretty much know him either as the Allstate guy or as President Palmer from 24. Okay, main character, beloved character. He gets shot in the neck by a sniper and killed in like the first 10 minutes of the season. And then a car bomb goes off, kills another main character and sets another third main character, her husband, into like a coma for half the season. It's like right away, like we're just starting this off with a bang. So like killing main characters left and right. and Jack Bauer has been framed for murder. They kill these people to draw him out of hiding because between the seasons he was pretending to be dead. He's faked his death, and then throughout the full season, trying to figure out not only who killed President Palmer, who's above this hit, and also there's an ongoing thing about nerve gas that there's just all these canisters of like super deadly nerve gas that they got to track down, and one of them ends up halfway through getting detonated in the CTU building and killing more main characters. And throughout this, you keep going up the chain, and you find out that actually the current president of the United States was like in on it, and he's like one of the big bats. Like, oh crap! And so then the president is after Jack Bauer, and there's only a handful of people who either know or believe that this is the case. And so President Logan, he basically has all government agencies and the entire military at his disposal to track down Jack, who's got like 4 people helping him take him down. And it's really good. And you keep cutting to President Logan isn't the big bad. He keeps having these conversations with this guy. We don't know much about him. All we know is that his name is Graham. And this is a guy, he's kind of like a Ben Linus. He kind of gives me Ben Linus vibes, where like he's not going to be the big bad who gets into a fist fight or a gunfight. He's just sitting in his office with his boardroom of guys, this whole like corporate thing. And through like political and financial means, he's like got the president of the country like controlled. At one point, he even convinces the president to almost kill himself rather than get caught. And so that kind of sets up this really good big bad. And at the end, they don't find out about this guy and he doesn't get caught. So going into season 6, you're like, cool, who is this guy? And it sets it up for a good villain. So that's kind of the summary of my favorite season 5. Going into season 6, we have this really cool character, this big bad. Who does he become? Oh, why don't we just announce that he is Graham Bauer, Jack's brother? And then it sets this whole see, Matt's shaking his head because he even realized this is dumb. It's so dumb. It's like, really?
The only thing that would be worse is if it was his evil twin brother. Like it's that, from what it sounds like, it's like that shy of being that bad.
Yeah, and so season 6 has some good moments, but it's like, yeah, one of the bads is Jack's brother, and then we have to deal with the drama with his wife and his teenage son, and his wife is like flirting with Jack, and it's like, ooh, are they going to be a thing? It's like, we don't need more family drama with Jack. Oh, and then later in the season, turns out his dad is also a bad guy who comes into the show, who played by James Cromwell. Missed opportunity not having Donald Sutherland.
I do like James Cromwell.
Yeah.
Oh, I also like Donald Sutherland. So
yeah, but it's just it's the season of bad family drama. And then, remember President Palmer, who I said got killed last season? Turns out he has a sister we never knew about, and now she's in the show, and she has a plot that doesn't matter. I don't even remember what it was. And it just really kind of hit the momentum. When I think of Great 24, I'm thinking of seasons 1 through 5. And it's also just stings me because there was a moment that I called it. I thought early on they were going to be setting up that this character Milo was going to be a mole or working with the bad guys. And I was like, oh, they're totally going to reveal this. I was picking up on the clues. And then about halfway through the season, he gets like shot and killed like pretty quickly. And I was like, okay, maybe not. But then turns out I was right. They were planning on writing him to be the mole. And then the actor wanted to leave the show for whatever reason. So then they changed courses. Like, no, I was right and you made me wrong. Just what?
You stupid actor. Wanted to go do other things. What's wrong with you?
I could have pointed to it and be like, yeah, I saw this coming because of this and this. But then no. So yeah, extra family drama, which with 24, really, we don't have a lot of family drama with Jack outside of like the first season, because I'm going to spoil a little bit, but it's an old show. Jack's wife dies at the end of season 1, and he gets killed by Jack's coworker / ex had an affair with her, and like someone he really trusted. And that really set up Jack's character and what motivates him. And after that, I mean, there was some dumb storylines with Kim, his daughter Kim, but we didn't need to focus on Jack's family drama. And then, except for season 6, like we're on a high. Let's make the bad guy Jack's brother and his dad, and everything's about Jack's family. I don't know. It just didn't hit home for me.
They kind of had that with Designated Survivor too. Like he had Kiefer Sutherland's character had family drama in the first season, and then they're like, this doesn't work. So then they pretty much didn't have the kids in the episodes anymore. Like, let's just stay on the political side of this, and like left the kids out.
Yeah. Well, it's like in the theme song of one of the theme songs of Everybody Loves Raymond, where he has the family going by him on the conveyor belt. He even says straight out, the show's not about the kids.
It's not about them. That's true. Yeah, I remember that one. So the beginnings of Everybody Loves Raymond, he had so many different ones. Do you remember the one where, like, I don't remember how long that he had it for, but they did like they like lower them in from the sky, like they're on like one of those like gravity machines that would help you feel like you're skydiving. What is that? What does this have to do with the show? Nothing. I don't get it. All right. So my number one show that does jump the shark, this is one that it had 5 good seasons and 5 crappy seasons. Now, in the 5 crappy seasons, there was a few good things that happened, but it's one of those shows that's like, I kind of have to watch because, like, if I'm going to watch all of it, or if I'm going to watch some of it, I have to watch all of it, you know? And so it's Smallville, and I've talked about Smallville before. I liked Smallville a lot, but Smallville started off, the whole idea was Clark Kent before he was Superman. And so, you know, the first season is him as a high schooler dealing with high school things. And pretty much every episode of season 1 was really like a monster of the week type episode. There'd be like a brand new person with powers that would show up, and then Clark had to stop it. And there'd be a little bit of a through storyline, but for the most part, it was really, each episode was practically standalone. So then the second season comes along, second and third season, they begin to do a little bit more of these arcs with characters and these villains that instead of it just being like this one guy in one episode, you know, you see a little bit more of a through line. And it gets really good in those seasons, and season 4, it's really on a high point. I would say season 4 is its best season, and season 5 still had a little bit of season 4's greatness in it. And then they moved to Metropolis pretty much because, you know, he graduates high school after 4 years. And so at the end of season 4, it's their graduation. And then season 5 is them in college in MU at the Metropolis University. Yeah. And so, you know, it's kind of going back and forth between Smallville and Metropolis. But as they're doing more and more of that, and as like they're like, we casted a really great Lois Lane in season 4, but she was just supposed to be a one-time like character arc for a couple episodes, and then we shipped her away. They brought her back as a series regular because Erica Durance was such a good embodiment of Lois Lane. She was phenomenal casting, and like, we have to take advantage of this. We have to make her a series regular. And so they did a lot more in Metropolis, and the last 5 seasons are a lot more like a Superman in his early years in Metropolis. Starting at season 6, they'd have more and more like these big overall, this is the bad guy for the season. Like, I think season 8 had Doomsday. He was the bad guy for the whole season. Season 9 was Zod. Season 10 was Darkseid. And so they did a lot more of that. And there's some good episodes in there. They had a Justice League episode in there, which was great. Really good. They bring in Green Arrow, which is what's his name from This Is Us, Kevin's character.
Justin Hartley, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, Justin Hartley. He played Green Arrow for about 2 or 3 seasons in there, and so like he was an interesting addition. But then they didn't do much with him after like the first half of the first season he was in, and then he actually, spoiling this, so if you've never seen it, he actually is one who kills Lex. And then like he kind of goes through this emotional like whatever this depression because he killed a man. And then Lex comes back, but because they didn't want to bring Michael Rosenbaum's character back, they don't bring him. They bring this stand-in for Lex, and so they bring him in, and then the final season it gets all like sorts of a mess, which is par for the course for a superhero show. But it's so different from what it was in the first couple seasons.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like they tried to change too much of the setting and the environment, and it just was too jarring. Is that about right?
Yeah. They also, one of the other big problems with it is like, let's say for making Doomsday the bad guy for all of season 8, you really have to have a slow burn with that. and the show was paced in a different way that didn't really allow for a slow burn.
Okay.
I'm gonna real quick. You can tell us what your number one is, and I can go back to kind of this conversation because it ties into another show
Okay.
that did a similar thing that jumped the shark, but it did it really well and knew what it was doing. So
Okay. My number one is a show that we've talked about, but we haven't talked about in a while, which is Community. And I think
Yep.
Community is one that, by the end, like half the cast was gone. But I actually think it jumped the shark before they started losing cast members. I think it's a strict first 3 seasons, last 3 seasons split. Because first 3 seasons had a good arc. We're getting to know the characters. And every season they had a new class they were working on together. Season 4 went off the rails partially because the creator, Dan Harmon, was fired. And so season 4 had completely different guys running it, and then they realized we need Dan Harmon back, so they brought Dan Harmon back for the 5th and 6th seasons. But it's just, I don't know, personalities and everything just kind of seemed off in season 4, especially with Chang, the character. I know you said before that you didn't like Chang that much, but Chang has a good story arc through the first 3 seasons. Teacher in the first season, he loses his teaching license and he's like kind of floundering, trying to find his way, thinks he might be Shirley's baby daddy and like stuff in season 2. And then season 3 gets that spark of becoming a security guard, which sets him on the path of being power hungry and ultimately trying to take over the school. And it's like, where do you go from there? Well, in season 4, they bring him back and they have him pretend to have amnesia. They call it Changnesia. And it was just a dumb storyline. And they also put Troy and Britta together, which was also like a dumb couple. Like, I don't know anyone who watched
terrible.
it.
That was one of the worst things that they did, apart from characters leaving the show.
There was a couple episodes early on where Troy and Britta had like a close friendship and they were making a bond, and that was fine. I don't think every character pairing that's close has to become a relationship. I don't think Troy and Britta are the best example of that. They could have just stayed close. So season 4 was just weird. And then going into season 5, like with Chang admits, oh yeah, I faked my Changnesia, and then he's just there. They mentioned how he's teaching math, but they don't give an adequate explanation as to why Chang is just part of the group and there for the last 2 seasons. It makes no sense. And also, they lose Troy and Pierce and Shirley, and some of the new characters they bring in are good. I liked a lot of what Jonathan Banks brought to the table.
Yeah, I liked Elroy a lot.
Yeah, Elroy was good, and Paget Brewster was pretty good too in certain scenes. But it wasn't the same thing. Like without Troy, they never really found their good footing with Abed for either. And so it was almost like losing half of Abed.
Yeah. Abed and Annie are a fine pairing, but not like they used them a lot. They really went back to the Abed Annie well when Troy left. And that relationship isn't strong enough to have that much of going back to those two having storylines together.
Exactly. And they just kind of just abandoned having anything interesting going on with Britta. I don't know. There's a lot of great moments. I think season 5 is better than season 4. I would still call season 4 the worst, maybe with season 6. I still think peak Community, like the reason Community is in my top 10 on my shows is because of the first 3 seasons.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a unpopular opinion right here for season 3. Season 3 was good, but season 3 is when it jumped the shark because season 3's storylines were really weird. Like the whole air conditioning annex thing, that's very different than the first 2 seasons. Sure, season 1 and 2, it has its weird moments, of course, and there's a lot of like, all right, I'll give you that sort of mentality, especially with Abed, breaking the fourth wall and all that sort of stuff. But it really went into a different direction in season 3 with things like going to the psychiatrist and him like, Greendale's not real, and like Chang's whole arc. I actually really hated what they did with Chang. I thought the air conditioning annex stuff was fine. It was weird, but it was fine. But Chang's power hungry, whatever, I was like, no, I can't buy it. So I liked actually Changnesia more than his what he had going on in season 3.
Nothing's worse than Shangnesia. I can, I can see where you're coming from. Like, I think I probably do overall like the storyline of the first 2 seasons better. But one thing I like about season 3, even if the storylines were weird, that's when they busted out a lot of these really good and interesting genre episodes. Like, that's where the Law and Order episode is. That's
Law
where
and Order was good, yeah.
the documentary about the pillows and blanket forts episode was in there.
Which, by the way, the narrator was the actor who went on to play Elroy.
So see, and season 3 has the zombie, like not the zombie, that was in season 2. Season 3 has the episode about Glee where they're all getting like taken into the Glee world, which I know you mentioned you like that one as well.
I do like that one. I do like the zombie Halloween episode. I hate zombie stuff. I don't. I strongly dislike. Maybe not hate, but I strongly dislike zombie stuff. But that was a really great way to do it, especially with having ABBA songs all the way through the episode. I don't know whose idea that was, but it was really funny.
Yeah, it's interesting. At different times, they like break out their budget for like all these songs. Like I know that ABBA, those ABBA songs, I don't know if it's ABBA or ABBA, but that really broke the budget. And then in season 3, I've heard that in the episode. What's the big one where each one of them takes a turn getting the pizza and it's all the different dimensions.
Oh, that's a great episode. One of the best of Community.
Yeah, well, that one they keep playing the song Roxanne. I guess Roxanne getting the rights to that song took so much of their budget. That's why the little jazz tune Daybreak is seen so much in season 3 of Community, because they blew their music budget on Roxanne in that one episode. It's a catchy song, but so that's a little Easter egg too. Watch season 3, you'll notice the same little jazz note. It's going to keep playing through the all season because of Roxanne.
Yeah, man. That was such a good episode. But yes, I've brought it up before. Season 5 with Jonathan Banks. I really liked the Meow Meow Kittens.
Oh yeah, Meow Meow Beans.
What was it? Meow Meow Beans, the app rating one. I think that was a 2-parter. I thought that was really good. I liked in the 6th season, I liked the what's his name, when the Dean gets that VR technology.
Oh yeah,
he's just so enamored with it. That was a great. Jesus wept. If you say Jesus wept one more time,
the Dean is consistently funny. Jim Rash is a comic genius, I think.
I was going to say, it's amazing how much they're like, yeah, we need to use him more, and like how he steadily got more and more of a part. Because in the season 1, he was practically non-existent except for a couple, announcements over the radio.
Yeah. And in that Meow Meow Beans episode, so it's basically an episode where they give a rating system, and based on what your rating is, you're either like a king or like a peasant kind of thing. And the Dean says, here's how it goes. 5s have lives, 4s have chores, 3s have fleas, 2s have blues, and 1s don't get a rhyme because they're garbage.
Oh, Jim Rash. What a guy. All right. So I want to jump back real quick. So we're going to do a little bit of just real quick, bring up a couple shows that also jumped the shark. I really wanted to, and maybe even in a positive way, but stuff that we've talked about before. I really wanted to bring up Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's a show that I really loved, but the first season is so different than every other season. The show, these agents at different points, they get their consciousness put into a computer program. They go through time, they go to space, they get sent through time to space. It's like there's all this different stuff that happens with them that is just really crazy stuff. But the first season was really, it's like, they're these office worker guys. They're these office worker agents for S.H.I.E.L.D. And yeah, S.H.I.E.L.D. deals with weird paranormal stuff, but they're still like just these normal everyday people. And then in season 2, they start introducing Inhumans, and they really get into powers, and they really get into a lot more stuff from then on. But the reason why they did what Smallville couldn't is because they knew how to pace their show. So there's like, I remember there's one episode in season 4 where, so when I first really noticed it, that there's a character that they introduced that was like this villain, and they easily could have made this character be like the big bad for the second half of the season, and you're going to have like 10 episodes that lead up to a confrontation. But they solved the big initial confrontation that it looked like they were going to be setting up. They solved it within that episode. But because of what they did to solve it, it created actually another problem. And there's another workaround this villain did. And it ended up creating like this domino for the next episode. And so they still had an overall arcing theme, but it wasn't like this slow burn. It was they figured out ways to resolve these things quickly so that they can introduce like, oh, that you thought you won, but you didn't. It was really well done. They had great writing, especially in season 4 was their best.
I never got into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I've only in the past like year and a half really gotten into watching all the Marvel movies. And then the first Marvel show I've watched this year is WandaVision.
Yeah, season 1 was a little rough because that one was they were finding what their footing was. They were also building their universe, and it was again that same thing with Smallville season 1, where it's like your monster of the week, so to speak. It was your mission of the week, and there's a lot of standalone episodes. And then finally, when Captain America: Winter Soldier came out, it was like 2/3 of the way through the season done with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 1. And the reveal in that movie of Hydra being infiltrated in S.H.I.E.L.D. really set things in motion in that show. And from there it picked up and it was not boring anymore. So you got kind of a boring first 2/3 of a season and then everything gets better. So not too many people made it past that though.
Yeah. All right, so Matt, we were talking earlier. You talked about maybe doing like a speed round of a bunch of other shows that we are not going to be on our top 3, but that we should probably be mentioned.
Yeah, like for instance, The Office. Once Michael leaves, that really is. I mean, it's a little bit before that they start going off the rails, but they keep it in touch.
There are some episodes in the last 2 seasons that are really good. Not just the finale, but I liked a little bit of Andy being the boss. And like, yeah, Robert California was the worst, but he's not in a bunch of episodes of season 8. So there's definitely some redeeming qualities in the end of Lost. Or I keep saying Lost, in the end of The Office.
I like the Tallahassee arc in season 8.
Oh, I love that.
That's probably the best part of that season.
That was a great group of characters to pull away from The Office, especially Stanley.
Yes. Yeah, and you gave him a new character type. Or not, it was consistent with his character, but it was a new way his character was acting.
Yeah. All right, Matt, do you have one?
Oh, yeah, how about Lost? Because you just said it, so we'll pretend that you said that. We'll give that one. Because Lost definitely jumped the shark. Very different show at the end. The final season, like I've said a lot of times, it's like a C.S. Lewis book where it's just so metaphorical for like supernatural things versus the first season where it's weird, but there's a lot of practicality to season 1.
But I loved season 5. I know people didn't like all the time travel stuff, but that's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, I remember the first couple episodes when I was watching season 5, and season 4 was okay, but it was getting a little stale, and I think some people got lost in season 4 and just quit. And season 5 comes along, I'm like, this is really good. You guys, if you haven't watched these episodes, watch them. They're so good.
And I love to see how season 5 solves problems. Like, through all the time, we were told there's like 40-some survivors of the plane, but we're only going to focus on less than half of them. So we have all these extra people we got to drag across the island, like at the end of season 3. Season 5 is like, we're going to get rid of all these people. Flaming arrow attack. Everyone's dead, except for our characters. That's how it works.
Yeah. Oh, Frogurt guy. Neil, you got, flaming arrow on your chest. You're dead.
One I will say, and we talked about it last week a little bit, that 70 show. Simple. Once Eric and Kelso leave, get rid of the new guy. It's terrible.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Randy. Yeah. I mean, Eric leaving really set it off, and it still was not good, but Kelso held it together as best as he could, and him leaving, no, it didn't work.
Looking through my list here, I wouldn't really count Scrubs because that one, the last season, was almost like a different show.
Yeah, exactly. Chuck does that way, so I won't. I know that some people are rewatching it, including Brian and myself. But Brian watching for the first time, so I won't ruin it. But the first season, the first 2 seasons, really, before something happens at the end of season 2. Chuck is a very different character. He really starts to grow as getting put into the spy life in season 3, and you see even more of that in season 5 and 6. I think there's 6 seasons. There's 5, so that is 4 and 5. Yeah. So after season 3, he really expands upon that, and some other stuff happens that you're like, okay, so this is a completely different person than we met in first season 1.
Yeah, I like Chuck. I'm halfway through season 4 right now, and over I still like the show. But one thing that's kind of annoying, they keep doing this. Like, oh, Chuck lost the intersect. Oh wait, here's a new intersect. You're back up and running. Oh, he lost that intersect. Oh, here's a new intersect. It's like, stop doing that.
Intersects are laying around this place.
And we talked about. I love how blatant they're getting with the Subway product placement. It's not even. They're not even trying to hide it.
Because Subway saved the show. They would not be able to make the show that they did without Subway. They would not be able to get the funding. So they're like, "Yep, we have to promo you. That's what we're doing."
I know. I just saw the episode where Big Mike gives Morgan like, "Here you go. It's my prized possession. It's this meatball marinara covered in provolone sauce. Oh, it's so good." Like, I don't know. Do you have any other lightning round ones that we didn't mention?
Those are kind of the biggies. I would have mentioned Community, but it was on your list, so you beat me to it.
You did, baby. I did beat you to it. Yeah. I can't think of anything offhand, really.
Yeah, we did it. And as we said, too, sometimes it's not bad. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's not bad to change to a different show. Chuck, it's not bad. Lost, it's not bad. That's what shows have to do. They progress. So
exactly.
There you go.
All right, Matt, do you have a trivia for us?
I do have a trivia question. So we don't talk about heroes all that much. So I decided let's look at some heroes trivia here. And there are 3 characters.
Hold up. First, should we answer last week's trivia first? I realize I did the kind of backwards.
No, we should. No, we shouldn't. All right, tell me. Remind us of what the question was.
All right. Last week we talked about some Michael Schur shows with our TV couples, and I said there's 2 actors who were on The Good Place, Parks and Rec, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So one of them is Jason Mantzoukas, who on Parks and Rec was the perfume guy, Dennis Feinstein. On The Good Place, he was the crazy made-up guy, Derek. And on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he was the also crazy Adrian Pimento.
I love the episode, by the way, where he's like is reenacting Memento with the tattoos. Oh, that is such a funny episode. Oh, it's kind of like Finding Nemo. Oh, Finding Nemo. Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. Jason Mantzoukas is also a huge Gilmore Girls fan, and he actually petitioned to get himself into the revival, and he did.
Well done. You did it, man. Sometimes dreams do come true.
Yeah. Even if Matt doesn't like your show. And then the other one
sucks. Yep.
The other one is Mark Evan Jackson, who on Parks and Rec was the lawyer Trevor Nelson. On The Good Place was actually a pretty big character, the main demon Sean. And on Brooklyn Nine-Nine was Captain Holt's husband Kevin.
Yep.
And was also the host of The Good Place, the podcast.
Like we said, there's some of these actors that they just pop up in so many different shows. You're like, I've seen you before. I know what you look like. There's the guy who we were just watching this not too long ago. So going back to Chuck, in Chuck's Red Test, this guy he was supposed to kill for the very first time in season 3 was the same guy that was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That was like the bomb dispute. What's his name? Teddy, that was like in love with Amy and like was not at all subtle about it. But he was kind of like
boring guy.
The guy who sucked. Yeah, the boring guy. Then he was also in The Office as he was the guy filming the commercial. One of the guys filming it.
Oh yeah.
And he was also in what else? He was in one. I think he was in another Mike Schur. I think he was in Good Place, but I can't remember. But yeah, it's so funny to see these guys. Like, I know you. I've seen you from like 10 different things.
Well, he really is the boring guy because as you're mentioning him, I realize he's got such a forgettable face. I would have not put together that he was in those shows.
There you go. All right, so jumping into heroes, there are 3 characters that all were in every episode of one whole season. Only 3 of them. One of them was Suresh. One of them was the man in glasses, Noah, Claire's dad. And then the other one was actually in 2 different seasons for every single episode. So who was the only actor / character that was in all episodes of 2 different seasons of Heroes?
I have a guess. But also the glasses guy, Noah, you mentioned, was also on The Office as the senator who married Angela.
As the senator. I remember when he popped up in there, I'm like, hey, I know him. Seen him before.
All right, I have a guess that I'll guess off air, and then you guys can guess. Let us know. If you want to reach out to us on Facebook and on Twitter, we are on TV Guys 1. We have an email, tvguyspodcast@gmail.com. No one's emailed us yet, so go ahead and be the first.
That's because email's for old people. Like, dude, come on, email.
I
Get on
email.
TikTok.
I email podcasts.
That's because you're so cool. Guys, you can be cool like Brian.
Yeah, you could. You could also leave us ratings as well.
You can do that. That'd be great. Well, it was fun. Next week, hey, speaking of Lost, we're going to just talk about Lost. We're going to talk about all the questions and answers of Lost. You know, some people, they walked away like, what the heck was that show about? If you have any questions about like, what did I just watch? Why is this the way it was? Why was Walt special? What did we're going to answer these like frequently asked questions about Lost, and we're going to do our best to let you walk away and be like, now I understand all about Lost. Still hate it or still love it, but I understand.
Yep. And some of these are going to be questions outright. Some of these are going to be what we think. I'm going to tell you why I think that Jack had an imaginary son.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot to like, man, all of a sudden, like, yeah, he's got a son to flash sideways. Here he is. All right.
Until Locke's like, you don't have a son. And then we never see the son again.
It's like, no, my non-son. All right. Well, until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.